They see me on their screens, a flicker of movement under dim streetlights, a shadow in the distance, a figure spinning slowly, rhythmically, as if caught in a trance. They share the clips, laugh nervously, make their jokes. They call me the Serbian Dancing Lady, but none of them ask why I dance. I wasn't always like this. There was a time when I had a name, a life, and a place in this world. I lived, I laughed, and yes, I danced. Dancing was my escape, a way to lose myself in music, to feel light in a world that often felt so heavy. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine, until it wasn't. There are places in this world where shadows linger longer than they should, where whispers carry on the wind even when no one is there. Places where the air feels thick, as though the ground itself remembers something terrible. The streets of my city, Belgrade, are one of those places. The city is old, older than most realize. It has its scars, its secrets, and its stories. And some of those stories don't stay buried. One night, long ago, I stumbled upon such a story. I was walking home late, the sound of my heels clicking softly against the cobblestones. The city was quiet, the kind of quiet that presses against your ears and makes every little sound echo louder. I remember the air that night. It was heavy, suffocating, as though the city itself was holding its breath. And then I heard it, a melody, faint, haunting, barely more than a hum carried on the breeze. It wasn't coming from anywhere, and yet it was everywhere. I stopped, looking around, but the street was empty. The lamps cast long, flickering shadows that seemed to move just out of sight. I should have gone home then. I should have ignored the melody, but I didn't. Something compelled me to follow it. My feet moved without thought, carrying me through winding streets I didn't recognize. The melody grew louder, filling my head until it was the only thing I could hear. It wasn't music, not exactly. It was more like a rhythm, a pulse, a heartbeat that wasn't my own. I found myself in a small square, the kind you wouldn't notice unless you were looking for it. The cobblestones were uneven, cracked, and overgrown with weeds. In the center stood a woman, her back to me. She was dancing, slowly, deliberately, her movements hypnotic. Her arms flowed as though caught in invisible currents, her feet barely making a sound against the stones. I called out to her. I don't know why. Maybe I thought she needed help. Maybe I just wanted to know what she was doing out here in the dead of night. She didn't stop. She didn't even turn around. Then she laughed. It wasn't a normal laugh. It was hollow, brittle, like the sound of glass breaking. The melody in my head grew louder, more insistent until I couldn't think. I wanted to leave, to run, but my legs wouldn't move. I could only stand there watching as she spun faster and faster. And then she stopped. She turned to face me. Her face, I wish I could forget it. Pale, expressionless, with eyes that seemed too large, too dark. They weren't human eyes. They weren't alive. She smiled at me. Not a kind smile, but one that felt like it had been carved into her face against her will. And then she moved toward me. I don't remember what happened next. I must have blacked out because the next thing I knew, I was waking up in my bed. The city was silent. The melody was gone. But I wasn't the same. Something had changed. At first, it was subtle. Shadows seemed to cling to me longer than they should. Lights flickered when I walked by. I felt watched, even when I was alone. And then came the dreams. Dreams of dancing. Always dancing. Always in the dark. I tried to go back to my life, to pretend nothing had happened, but the rhythm wouldn't let me. It was inside me now, a constant pulse in the back of my mind. And then, one night, I found myself in the streets again. I wasn't fully awake, but I wasn't asleep either. I was moving, spinning, gliding under the flickering streetlights. My body moved on its own, driven by the rhythm. I couldn't stop. That's when they started seeing me. The first few times, I didn't notice them. The people with their phones, recording from the safety of shadows. But then I began to feel them, their eyes on me, their fear. I didn't chase them, not at first, but the rhythm, it doesn't like being interrupted. It doesn't like being watched. So when they call out to me, when they laugh or step too close, the rhythm takes over, and I let it. They always run. They think they can escape me, but they can't. The rhythm doesn't stop when they leave. It follows them just as it followed me, just as it will follow you. Because you're watching, aren't you? You've seen the videos. You've heard the stories. Maybe you're curious. Maybe you're brave. But curiosity has a cost, and bravery won't save you. The rhythm is patient. It waits. Late at night, when the world is quiet, listen carefully. Do you hear it? That faint hum, just on the edge of hearing, the one that makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up? That's how it starts. It's always there, waiting for you to notice it. And once you do, it's too late. They call me the Serbian Dancing Lady, but I wasn't the first, and I won't be the last. The rhythm doesn't belong to me. It belongs to the shadows, to the whispers, to the places where the world blurs between what's real and what's not. So go ahead, watch me dance. Laugh if it makes you feel safe. Tell yourself it's just a story, just a video. But when the melody finds you, and it will find you, remember this. You invited it in. You followed the rhythm. And now it's your turn to dance. Can you hear it? Listen closely. It's starting.